want you all to think back to the year 2001. George Bush was in office, anime was in the midst of its first big boom period after the first exposure it had in the 90s, Commodore Agito makes its debut, Samurai Jack and Invader Zim comes out, the internet still looks ugly, the WWF wins the Monday Night War, Stone Cold Steve Austin turns heel at WrestleMania 19, and most important of all, Linkin Park releases Hybrid Theory. I mean, what else could be of more importance than when we all collectively crawled in our skin in the year 2001? But more so, I want you all to remember the 6th generation of video game consoles. To me, this is where about the next decade or so worth of trends, memorable moments, things in gaming culture, and really a lot of its reputation, a lot of video games' reputation in general was born from, and what eventually evolved into what we have now, for better and for worse.
Not only did Sony come out with the PS2 and help bring a new generation into gaming through the fact that it was a DVD player alone, the GameCube had its cult following and the Xbox made its debut. Along with this, the PC market was growing even more after the mid-90s boom, and in the early days of the internet, a huge topic of popularity was, of course, gaming, and online gaming in particular. You want to know what was released in 2001? Final Fantasy X, Grand Theft Auto V, Devil May Cry, Golden Sun, The Sims, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, the second generation of Pokemon, Metal Gear Solid 2, Smash Bros. Melee, Unreal Tournament, Conker's Bad Fur Day, The Forced Animal Crossing, Max Payne. Do I need to really go on? 2001 was truly one of the best years in all of video game history, and yet, today, we have almost forgotten about one of its biggest icons. No, not the one you like. I, of course, am talking about Halo.
Yeah, it's kind of weird to think about now since Halo has fallen off the map in more recent years, but Halo was one of the biggest things, not just gaming culture, but pop culture within the early 2000s. Hell, for most of the 2000s and creeping into the 2010s, it was equally as big as some of the other big players in the industry. It was revolutionary, it got a ton of awards, ton of appeal from both critics and fans, and spawned a billion-dollar franchise that created movies, a TV show on Paramount+, books, comics. It helped popularize the MLG circuit. Hell, it helped spawn Rooster Teeth, which of course made Red vs. Blue, a Halo machinima, and that eventually led to them creating a big, massive media empire that created Ruby and shows that aired on Toonami, and yeah, I think you get the point. Halo was fucking big.
Halo rules, and I'm sort of sad it's forgotten about most people nowadays. Of course, it has its dedicated fan base, but so does every boomer shooter and sci-fi fan base from that time. Maybe it's because of time, maybe it's because the climate was way different back 20 years ago, but I'm not here to talk about the downfall of Halo. Yet, that is. That will come one day, because I do plan on making more videos about Halo, assuming this does well, or at the very least I enjoy making this video. I'm here to ask the question, did Halo Combat Evolved age well? Did it deserve to be considered one of the greatest games of all time? And to that I say, if we were talking about Halo 2, I would see your point, kinda sorta, but for the most part, yeah, I say it aged phenomenally well. It was originally planned as an RTS PC game, then a third-person shooter, then an FPS game as a launch title for the original Xbox. Halo Combat Evolved was truly a sign of what was capable in this new era of games. A console shooter that controls like a dream with an iconic soundtrack, killer multiplayer, and a campaign with amazing levels, but also kind of a mediocre story. And like I mentioned, it still holds up today. Developed by Bungie, known for PC shooters like Oni, Marathon, and Myth, The Fallen Lords, Halo was a smash hit that made people buy an Xbox. Hell, it made people try out a console that had LAN play. Hell, LAN parties in general for console games were a rarity. And at this time, there were not that many console shooters. Of course, they existed, but most were hit or miss. Like, I love GoldenEye, but those fucking controls, man, unless you grew up with it or playing the more recent remaster on Xbox, it's kind of awkward to control. Plus, given how beefy the original Xbox was, it allowed for graphics on par with PCs, making it really advanced compared to what was on the PS2 at the time. And because of its success, not only did we get a wave of games that tried to be the next Halo killer, but it helped create a generation of new video game fans that, on top of the popularity of PS2 and the increasing accessibility of PC gaming, I would argue was the first step forward into having video games be treated as more than just a simple pastime, and now into a larger art form. For the record, I'm mainly talking about Western video games, as this has arguably started a few years earlier, mainly in Japan, of course, with its RPG scene. Granted, RPGs and point-and-clicks have been doing this since the late 80s, so really it's not too surprising, but at least in the Western sense, especially with general pop culture, treating it differently, I feel like Halo is a great example as the overall shift in how video games are perceived culturally.
But enough about that. Let's crack open a Mountain Dew and get ourselves not an Xbox Live headset, because the original game didn't have online play, and let's talk about Halo Combat Evolved. I wanted to get Mountain Dew Game Fuel for this, because they just re-released it, but I cannot find the flavor I like in stores anymore. I think it's the cherry one, and also it has so much caffeine in it, and I don't want to stay up all night. And also, this is the only one I have. So shout out to Cherry Vanilla Coke. It's like my favorite Coke flavor. They took away Orange Vanilla Coke. Those bastards are the only available in freestyle stores. They better never fucking take this away. I'm coming after you, Coca-Cola. I'm coming after you. Fucking fascist.
It's the future. 2552 to be exact, and humanity is fucked. You see, after colonizing other planets, the United Nations Space Command, otherwise known as the UNSC, created a number of super soldiers known as the Spartans. Instead of using, adults, they kidnapped children, replaced them with clones, putting them through awful military training, unintentionally killing children due to implants that made them stronger, and indoctrinating them so they could stop a human insurrection.
The UNSC are the good guys!
But whoops, an alien race known as the Covenant stopped by and wanted to kill humans due to them being an affront to the Forerunners, a race of ancient gods with incredible technology that may or may not have been stored on the planet Reach, which is now a military and science colony that, after an attack by the Covenant, is left in ruins, but not after a spaceship known as the Pillar of Autumn made it out with most of its people and two noble figures. A powerful AI known as Cortana that's created by and modeled after Dr. Catherine Halsey, the one who created the Spartan program, and John 117, the most powerful Spartan who will be otherwise known as the Master Chief, and humanity's last hope. We start on the Pillar of Autumn. Chief is woken up, and quickly afterwards, the ship is attacked by the Covenant, and is given Cortana as his AI partner, and also aimed to protect her, as if the Covenant do get access to her, things can get fucked. And so now they look to crash on a nearby world in order to hopefully get the Covenant off their ass. Oh, also, we meet Sergeant Johnson, otherwise known as the best character. This level acts as a great intro to Halo. Not only do you get a good sense of the threat the Covenant poses with how they're easily able to tear through a ship and its soldiers, but you also have an iconic track provided by Martin O'Donnell. And then when you get the Magnum, you are like a one-man army, tearing through elite after elite with killer gunplay.
One thing I really liked about Halo 1 compared to the rest of the games is how different it feels, especially with the sound design and its gameplay. Everything here feels a bit more floaty, and the sound design, oh my god, every fucking soundbite you hear from the weapons, or even just you punching shit, it's so good. It makes you feel like a walking weapon, man.
Take the God Tier pistol, for example. This fucker can kill people with a single round or less, but it's of course not as easy as people make it out to be. There are a lot of factors, namely environmental ones, and also the fact that because of how people move, it makes it harder for you to aim your shot. Even on some Covenant, I noticed that it was kind of hard, but if you're able to master it, it's very rewarding, and it can pretty much be the only gun you feel like you have to use. Now, with that being said, every weapon has something to make it stand out, and make every weapon at least somewhat viable, or mostly viable for combat. It's not like later games or other FPS games where there were clearly some guns that, no matter what, are trash. Every gun here has at least the potential to score a clean kill, assuming they use them properly. Like, of course, the Magnum is great, but you can just as easily get a kill with a sniper rifle, or a rocket launcher, or even a shotgun.
Compare this to something like Halo 2 and Halo 3. Yeah, sure, there's a bigger variety of weapons, so obviously you're gonna have some things that nobody wants to use, but typically you, at least in my experience, only really stick to the same 3 weapons. Your battle rifles, your energy swords, snipers, whatever. With Combat Evolved, you typically stick whatever you spawned in with, or whatever you could find on the map, and even then, every weapon you can find can be used in some way to your advantage, even the most arguably weakest of them. Compare this to, say, Halo 2 and 3, and who the fuck uses the needler when you can just use a battle rifle?
By the end of this level, we crash into the ring world known as Halo, and my god! If Pillar of Autumn was the code open, then this is an amazing first chapter. That skybox. Remember, this is when a lot of games still had pre-rendered backgrounds and kept to small areas, or, if they were bigger, hid most behind a skybox or kept it very low poly when farther away. Here, everything is in the highest resolution possible. Well, resolution for 2001 standards to be exact. And again, that music. The best way I can describe it is whimsical. It's music that tells you that you're all in familiar territory, and it's a bit scary, but there's an amount of intrigue involved. We are also introduced to one of the most iconic items in Halo history, the Warthog.
I think it looks more like a puma.
This dude rules. It has a turret on the back of it and flips over a bit too much for my liking, but fuck yeah, it rules, it's awesome. Now, yes, this level does drag on for a bit longer than I like, and there's a lot of finish this horde then go to the next kind of moments, but man, if the first level didn't get people hooked, then this one definitely did. This is also the level where we get to see a bulk of the weapons we can acquire throughout the game. I already mentioned the Magnum, but the Assault Rifle is also a classic. Hit those elites with a good old half-round and melee combo and it feels better than sex. The Plasma Pistol is a nice counter to the Magnum, but you can't really snipe it like you can do with the regular Magnum. But it's massively useful in destroying shields. Hit a charged up shot, and you can just take down somebody's entire shield, or even temporarily disable a vehicle, and that can lead to a quick kill, so it's actually pretty helpful if you use it as a secondary. Plasma rifles, however, in my opinion, are just sort of meh. Don't get me wrong, it's fine enough as an alternative for the regular assault rifle, especially if you tap it in bursts instead of holding it down, since it does overheat pretty easily. But I would personally just take the regular assault rifle. Then we have the sniper, shotgun, and rocket launcher. Sniper rifle works like any other sniper from around this time, only with a bit more stable aiming and, well, night vision, but it's pretty fucking fun to use, especially in multiplayer. Shout out to the shotgun for probably being Combat Evolved's best weapon, but also having the best sound of any weapon in the game. And also, stupidly long range for a shotgun. Like, I always thought shotguns were supposed to be kind of close, but here, I feel like I can hit somebody like a few feet in front of me. Like seriously. I'm not complaining though, it's awesome. The rocket launcher is, well, it's fucking awesome, but I can't really say anything else other than it's a rocket launcher and it's awesome. I really like using it in small hallways. You can really abuse the fuck out of it there. And finally, the flamethrower, which is in every version of the game outside of the original Xbox port, and is super fun to use. Probably really fun in my opinion. Probably a bit too much fun. You know, you can easily take down basically anything, but you have to be kind of close, so that's the one slight disadvantage to it. But unlike most weapons in the game, it does have a bit of a status effect, as if you're able to hit somebody with it, it does keep burning the players for a bit until that flame eventually dies out, but if it sticks around for long enough, it can easily kill them. You also have the needler, which homes in on enemies and shoots out needles that explode, meaning that it's not so fun to get hit with, but makes for a great secondary. And then you have your grenades and plasma grenades, aka sticky grenades. Both have a stupid blast radius and the ultimate cheese move for tight hallways. Overall, a great crop of weapons. Like I mentioned before, there's no weapon that's clearly more powerful than the rest and that doesn't have some kind of flaw, OP pistol be damned, so it keeps the game balanced and fun to play. Again, this is something I feel like other Halo games kind of struggle with, since the weapon pool in those games are much more bigger, you have the opportunity for just to avoid certain weapons because they're not as versatile as, say, the battle rifle, for example. But back to the story, after fighting through wave after wave of enemies, we find out Captain Keyes survived the crash, but is being held captive on the Covenant ship, Truth and Reconciliation. By the way, I'm editing this right now and I forgot to mention who Captain Keyes is. He's the captain of the Pillar of Autumn, and he's kind of forgettable in this game, in my opinion. I'm sure he's great in expanded material. I know he appears in Fall of Reach, because I'm reading that as of now. I haven't finished it yet, but I'm still reading it. I'm sure he's great in, like, Halo Wars and stuff, but man, do I just not care for him here. He makes kind of an impact later on in the game, but as of now, he's just kind of there, which sucks because he seems like an okay character, but man. So we sneak our way into the ship, and by that, I mean not really sneak because fuck it, it's more fun to go guns blazing, and we get to destroy these turrets with grenades. Yippee! Speaking of the Covenant, it's probably a good time to talk about the variety of guys we gotta fill with lead. Grunts are your typical lackeys, weaker, smaller dudes who like to run away from you but throw a lot of plasma grenades maybe a bit too often. But not so much where it becomes annoying, just a lot where it actually unintentionally helps you since they like to accidentally kill themselves a lot of the time. They are the Goombas of the Halo universe. Elites are more your size and a lot more aggressive depending on what flavor you're facing. Some even have camo and the legendary energy sword, which wouldn't become equipable until Halo 2. They make for a fun threat and are equally aggressive as you all. Shackles are annoying, especially on harder difficulties. It's way worse, especially when they try to snipe you, but at least in this game they aren't completely the spawn of Satan. That wouldn't come until Halo 2. Just destroy that shield and soon they will run in fear of you. And finally, the Hunters. These guys are just kind of a joke, to be honest. When you're in a vehicle, I can see them kind of becoming an issue, but when you get behind them and just hold the right stick to the left or right as you're moving in the opposite direction, they go down pretty quickly, or just one shot with a pistol because, again, the Magnum is God. Also, here is where we have our only armor upgrades, or armor pickups to be more exact. Overshield, which boosts your health, and Camouflage, which makes you invisible, but only when you're standing still, as you can only kind of see them as you're walking. It's really a lot more helpful for avoiding larger groups of enemies, and a lot more in multiplayer. But both are fine nonetheless, even if I only really use camo in multiplayer. After finding and releasing Captain Keyes, we discover that the planet is known as Halo, and according to Cortana, it's a weapon that's important to the Covenant's religion. And if they can get control of the Halo, then we are going to get fucked! So they have to escort Keyes out of the ship and find a way to the control room of Halo. The Silent Cartographer is our next level, and this is probably my favorite level of the game. You get to roam around the area in your Warthog, the action is non-stop, and definitely the second most pretty level of the game. Plus, it's just so fun to see Chief take down an entire fleet by himself, and that's before you get access to the rocket launcher and the power of small hallways and explosives to make these guys your bitch. By the end of it, we locate the destination of the control room, and this brings us to the next level, Assault on the Control Room. The actual prettiest level of the game, for one reason and one reason only. Snow! Also this giant-ass tank you can control, plus a ghost! Ghosts are these Covenant vehicles that can shoot out beams that go kinda fast, but honestly I only really use them in multiplayer. We even get to see the Covenant's own version of a tank, a Wrath, which is faster than a tank, but arguably worse since the aiming is kinda awkward. One complaint I kind of have is, again, the length. Much like Halo, I feel like it's a bit too long, but here I feel like it's justified given with the tank section and enemy placement. I do feel like it's a bit easy to get lost. For some reason, I feel like I have to backtrack on occasion, and that can get annoying, but not so much where I feel like it becomes a problem. Too bad I can't have the same sentiment for later when we revisit this level in the game. After fighting through waves of enemies, we finally make it to the control room, and Cortana finds out that the Covenant discovered something while trying to use Halo, something that scared them. Cortana tells us to find Keyes and to stop him from going any further. By the time we reach him, we notice a few things. That there are dead Covenant and dead soldiers, and clearly they weren't fighting each other. In fact, the grunts and jackals are running away from where Keys should be. The whole area is in ruins, and the soldiers inside seem deranged and traumatized by something. One mentions how something killed his other teammates. Something is clearly up, and the eerie music and tone don't help either. And, after looking at one of the Marines' helmet footage, it's shown that even before Keys and company entered the building, the elites were taken out already. And when they get further into the base, they find what the Covenant were afraid of. The Flood. Parasitic-like entities that come in waves and that die somewhat quickly, but that's because there are waves of them that overtake their victims like zombies. So in short, holy fucking shit! Zombies with guns! This level is the turning point of the game for me. Before we felt like a bulldozer, easily being able to swarm through waves of enemies, but now, it's like we're fighting to survive, watching in horror as we see them feast upon helpless grunts and marines. It's actually kind of scary, to be honest, and again, the music used enforces this tone with a tense, moody score. You eventually recruit back with the surviving soldiers and try to make it back to your ship, but then this guy pops up. This is 343 Guilty Spulk, a little shit designed to make sure the Flood don't leave that forcefully teleports Chief out of the area to help him stop the Flood. Where does he take Master Chief, you may ask? To hell. The library sucks. It just does. It's one big boring level with endless Flood coming at you, most of which have guns, mind you, mainly those fucking rocket launcher goons over there. Plus, you have to mainly use the shotgun in this level, the fucking gun that requires, admittedly, not that close, but still close aiming, in a place where you have to deal with a bunch of these guys with all of them huddled together. And it just goes on, and on, and on, and on, and holy shit, when will this level end? By the end of it, you get to the activation index. We are teleported back to the control room, and Cortana reveals to us that the purpose of Halo is to destroy all life in the galaxy. Spulk betrays us for not activating Halo, and tries to find someone else to do it, and also introduces a new type of enemy, the Sentinels, these flying robots that shoot evil death rays, and I hate them. The next level, Two Betrayals, is in some way worse or just as bad as the library. At least there you have a pattern you can stick to, but here, because it's control room's layout but backwards, it's so fucking long. Plus, you're fighting 3 different groups at once, and sure, it makes it chaotic, which I do kind of like, but it's not so fun when you keep getting lost and confused and the arrows placed around for when you're supposed to go is not where you're actually supposed to go, because you realized, oh wait, it's backwards, so it's completely fucked, and I hate it, and it just sucks. A lot of the time, like this bridge section, you don't even have cover, and you can't bypass rafts, banshees, and a whole bunch of shit. So you have to stick through it. You have to fight through it. And yeah, sure, it's easier on like normal difficulty, but playing on anything besides that makes it kind of a nightmare. At least it's not as boring as the last level, but god, it's very frustrating. Oh, and that part where you steal a banshee in order to find the generators just sucks. At least the banshees are fun to play with. The only thing you can actually use to fly in this game, since the Pelican wasn't added until Halo 3 and the Falcon wasn't added until, god, Halo Reach, I think? Speaking of, in order to stop Spulk from activating Halo so fast, they need to destroy these generators, which all look the same. God, guys, can you stop using assets? So, he has to repair them. Meanwhile, since activating Halo would cause the entire galaxy to, well, to do this, they need 2 things. 1, to go back to the Pillar of Autumn to destroy the fusion engines, which should be powerful enough to set off an explosion off Halo, and Captain Key's neutral implants, which is basically a chip in his brain that shows he's a UNSC member. Why we have neuron implants to show our IDs in the first place is beyond me, but I kinda get the feeling the UNSC is a bunch of fucking idiots. Meanwhile, Captain Keyes is back at the ship he was originally being held captive at beforehand, and we go through the damaged remains of the ship. This is actually a pretty cool level, definitely manageable after the last 2, and pretty fun overall. Eventually, we find the captain. Oh, fuck!
Whoa, that's, Ooh, I gotta,
We take his brain chip out of his brain, which is metal as fuck, by the way, and use the Banshee to escape back to the remains of the Pillar of Autumn. But just after they activate the self-destruct of the Pillar of Autumn, who shows back up then 343 Guilty Spalk, and he is revealed to be on the ship, and he decides to avoid their attempts at a self-destruct sequence. So they decide the best thing to do is by using good old-fashioned way, destroy the fucking thing with grenades. After destroying the reactors inside the ship, we have to make a mad dash to get out and use the Warthog to escape in a sequence that is still really cool. You get to run through both factions of enemies, pass by all the explosions, maybe crash your Warthog a bit too many times, but all in all, it's a great final sequence. Especially when you have the Halo battle theme play. It's good shit. And so, Halo is destroyed, no survivors are reported, and humanity is saved, despite the cost of millions of lives, likely.
Cortana actually openly asked if they did the right thing for activating Halo.
Did anyone else make it?
Scanning. Just dust and echoes. We're all that's left. We did what we had to do, for Earth. An entire Covenant armada obliterated, and the Flood. We had no choice.
Sure, if they would have activated it, the whole galaxy would have gone kaput, but they still ultimately killed dozens upon thousands, fuck, millions of people. So it's a cool little was it worth it moment, which I wish we got more of in this game. Hell, in the entire franchise for that matter.
Cortana says Halo is over, but the Chief says that we're just getting started. And that brings us to the end of Halo Combat Evolved.
Earlier in this video, I've said that Halo, for the most part, aged really well. That for the most part is in reference to the second half of the game, which is a fucking slog full of a bunch of backtracking. Now, I know a lot of people say that that started with Assault on Control, but I personally liked it, even if I felt like it went on for a bit too long. So if you're like me, and I feel like a lot of people say this, it begins on the library, which just sucks. Because I'll be honest, half of this game is backtracking, and it kinda stinks.
Now, yes, I do feel like people over-exaggerate Halo's backtracking, and I know this was a common dev trope back in the day, but playing what's just a long level over again with the difficulty ramped up is not very fun, nor that entertaining. Meanwhile, the last two, by all means, are really great levels, especially the final act of the last one, but they still reuse level 3 and level 1's maps, just changed slightly, which sucks because I want to see more of Halo. We see a lot less of this version of Halo than what I feel like we should see. Maybe not so much as to feel overwhelmed, and given the constant reuse of map designs and assets, maybe it's for the better that they didn't. Still, I feel like a missed opportunity is a missed opportunity, even if I feel like you can argue by exploring more of Halo that kind of ruins a lot of the mystique of it. But honestly, we know a lot about Halo by the middle of the game, so really just showing more possible really unique areas could have been a lot cooler than just, well, repeating the same 4 ones over and over again. And, wow, that story. It's obvious Halo was never meant to be this massive franchise, or even a trilogy for that matter, as the devs would later say. But the team definitely wanted to expand on the game's world, characters, its history, and whatever else they feel like they can make for a unique story. Just look at all the cut content. It's just a shame the story itself is kind of blah. Now don't get me wrong, I've heard the Halo novels are really good. Also, I know Halo 2 has a much better story. Not so much for Halo 3, but we'll get there when we get there. But everything told in game and through cutscenes is only just tiny tidbits. For example, the stuff about the Spartan 2s, how it's kind of fucked up they kidnap children for war, never mentioned in game. A lot of that is explored in stuff like the Fall of Reach novel, which, for the record, I have heard is good, and I do plan on reading it, but I would have liked to see that in the game. Hell, I would have enjoyed it a lot more if we learned much more about the Master Chief and how he feels about this whole situation. Hell, I would have loved to hear a lot more about Captain Keyes or Dr. Catherine Halsey, which I don't even think is even mentioned in the game at all. It's just a missed opportunity that, again, I know is explored later on, but I kind of wish we got to hear more about it in this game in particular.
Even stuff like the Covenant religion's barely explored. Hell, I don't even know that much about the Forerunners outside of the fact that the Covenant worships them like gods and they created Halo. What's the deal with the Flood? How did they come about? Why are the Forerunners considered gods? A lot of this would of course be addressed in later materials, but I'm only really going off of what I had in the game, especially since there's not a lot of depth to the story. It's pretty much aliens bad, zombies bad, military good, and I'm sorry, when you write a sci-fi story, I expect a bit more depth, especially when it comes to a military sci-fi. Just boiling it down to that is just kind of, I don't know, shallow, I guess? It's very disappointing. Of course, I know, this would eventually be expanded upon in later materials and in Halo 2, and thankfully my criticisms actually do get addressed in those games. But still, I don't know, I felt like there could have been a massive rework on the story.
Even the characters are undeveloped, but at least what we do see of Cortana, Guilty Spoke, and of course Master Chief is entertaining. Really, most of that is Cortana, who managed to be your typical snarky AI who does all the technical stuff.
Do what? I have the index. You can just float and sputter. Not that you'll listen, but I'd suggest letting my subroutines handle the final approach. This thing is falling apart.
It'll hold.
We're not gonna make it.
We'll make it.
Pull up! Pull up! You did that on purpose, didn't you?
Bourne and Chief make a great duo, and while I wish we got to see more of Chief be a character than just a badass that says a few lines, I do enjoy what we got to see here. Again, I just hope we got more of an expansion on that. Really, and I might get some shit for saying this, but while people say the story of Combat Evolved is really good, it's clearly a jumping off point for a much better story to be told. It has the potential to be something truly great, but just serves as a sort of meh narrative. Not really great, but not bad either, just mid, basically. However, the voice acting is great. Like, this is when companies really started to care about game performances, and everyone did a really solid job. Even the random Marines that you get to pass by that shit-talk aliens, they're all pretty damn good. Honestly, I would argue the best aspect of Halo 1's campaign is the music. It seriously elevates every moment you experience. From when you crash onto Halo, from when you make it out of the control room, that amazing chase at the end, even the library that's horror movie-esque sounds. It really is special, and they could have easily put in some generic sci-fi bleeps and bloops or generic rock music, because that always seems to be a go-to for these kind of games. But from the moment you see the game's logo and that haunting, mysterious, for lack of a better word, cool theme song plays, it sets the mood for the rest of the game. A mood that screams, you have no idea what's in store for you. It gives the whole thing a cinematic feel, and that's perfect for a game like this. I seriously think that if it wasn't for the music and the gameplay both being phenomenal, Halo wouldn't have been seen as such a strong game as it is today. And then finally, there's the game's multiplayer. Now, I feel like it's a bit hard to objectively judge a game's multiplayer since a decent part of the experience depends on how good you are at the game, but as somebody who's kinda good, I guess, at Halo, it's so fucking good, but I won't really talk about it that much. I haven't really had any major great grievances with online play outside of the fact that I feel like some people can be a bit too salty, but that just may be me being a bit too salty. However, I feel like it's best played with split-screen multiplayer, oddly enough. Maybe that's my nostalgia bias, even though I never really grew up with Halo multiplayer, but I feel like it's the best way to play Combat Evolved. It's a high I truly can't get enough of. What's really impressive about the Combat Evolved multiplayer is that despite not having online functionality for consoles when it was first released, and the only way to get more than 4 people was through LAN play, it was so popular that it was common for LAN parties to be held for this console shooter. This actually brings me to a funny story about multiplayer. So, back in my film class in high school, we had about 22 computers, and because we needed to download assets like music and sound effects, we often set up LAN networks to share files around. Particularly, this would be set up by our teacher, who would download the stuff, and then he would drop it in, and then, leave it there for us. people would often share games, and one of them was a cracked copy of Combat Evolved's PC port. And so, when we had time to kill, we would have sets of like 10 people plus playing games of Capture the Flag and Slayer. It's one of my favorite moments in high school, and our teacher actually even joined us in for a lot of those games. It was really fun.
And so that was Halo Combat Evolved. Now, if you want to play this yourself, I would highly recommend tracking down the Master Chief Collection. It's not that hard, and if you have a PC or any Xbox made within, God, the last decade, pretty much anything past 360, you can play it, and it's a great way of playing not just Halo 1, but also Halo 2, Halo 3, 4, ODST, and Reach, and you can frequently get it for like under $10, so it makes it really worth it. And also, there's a lot of nice quality of life updates. You have widescreen support, you have subtitles, which shockingly enough, the original game didn't have subtitles to my knowledge, or if it did, at least it wasn't there for, non-cutscene stuff. It also has mod support, and of course online, so if you really want the best version of Halo, I would argue that is what you want to go for. But there's no shame in tracking down the original Halo on the original Xbox. You can probably get it for like $5 on eBay. Honestly, it's not that rare of a game. There's even a more newer reprint with the Game of the Year edition, and it's just nice having a physical copy. I would have brought this out sooner, but I legitimately forgot I was supposed to bring this up when I was doing the, oh, here's Halo bit, It sucks as a sticker on here. Yeah, so either get the original Xbox port or Master Chief Collection. I would say also the PC port, but at that point you're better off with Master Chief Collection. Unless you really want to download a cracked copy of a 2001 FPS. Which I would, but that's besides the point. And because of this, well, Xbox became a household name, Halo became one of the best console shooters of all time. It introduced a ton of people into not just video games, but also console shooters, and overall, became one of the biggest franchises of all time. And I'm forever grateful for that, and maybe one of these days we'll actually talk about the other Halo games, but as of now, it was fun looking back at Halo Combat Evolved. Now let's teabag some people in multiplayer.
Hello, and thank you for watching this video about Halo. It was really fun to produce, and I was surprised I got it out relatively on time. My goal was February, and it's currently January 15th as of writing this, as of recording this to be exact, and yeah, I beat that by a good bit. I'm hoping to make more Halo videos in the future, so hopefully you guys like this much, and if you really liked it, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and do all that stuff. And if you really, really liked it, you can go ahead and give me a follow on Tumblr or Twitter, whatever you want, those two ones. And also, if you really, really, really liked it, I have a Ko-Fi if you want to, give me a tip. This is my first time covering a video game in forever, and I thought I did a pretty good job, and I'm very hopeful that I one day can cover Halo 2, Halo 3, and all the other Halo games, and other video games in general. I'm working on a few ones, namely a video about No More Heroes I wanted to do for a while, but I think the next video is probably going to be, like, related to Power Rangers or something, definitely another movie-based one, because I like video games, but I'm more or less a movie person than I am more of a video game person, even though I collect video games as a hobby. You could argue I'm more equal between the two, but that's beside the point. Anyways, I'm gonna stop rambling and just let you guys, do whatever you want. Also, as an unrelated side note, they finally have Baja Blast in the stores. Go get some. It's really good. And, yeah, this is Raven Fortis Studios, signing off. It's feel weird saying that instead of my actual name, but, it's just the world that we live in.